What is the unfair advantage, and how can you weaponize the hypomanic toolbox? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny, yes, finally sunny, Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So if you're looking to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym, just like yours truly did, stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode. Or if you're super duper curious, which I totally get why you would be, scan that little QR code over my shoulder or simply head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. You're going to know you're in the right spot when you see a little note at the top of your browser saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. But let's jump into, yes, this hypomanic toolbox. By the way, it's not hypomaniac, as much as I wished that was the terminology, but I was corrected by today's guest before we hit the record button. It's not hypomaniac, it's hypomanic. So let's talk about this unfair advantage. Todd Hagopian, welcome back to the Brian Nichols Show. How you been, bud?
Man, I've been so good, and congratulations, man. The show just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, man. So
thanks,
for
buddy.
having me back. This is great.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. No, it is kind of funny. Like, and you and I were chatting before. I was like, "Wow, it's been a while since you were on the show, and lots has changed." Like back when you were on the show, and you know, we might be dancing on some graves here. That's okay. But like, I was predominantly a more big L libertarian show, right? We were talking about libertarian internal politics and how to run effective libertarian candidates, and I was on the whole sell liberty train, right? And I found, and I don't know about you, Todd, and we can maybe use this as a transition to your introduction, but like I have found that it's one thing to be passionate about the politics, to understand the ism, in this case, the libertarianism, right? Or the other isms that are out there, but I digress. But like when you have that become your own identity, it gets very difficult to kind of get outside of that worldview, right? Because, or not even so much the worldview, but like the box you put yourself in, because now all of a sudden the box you put yourself in is entirely based on a worldview versus out there are literally millions and millions, dare I say, billions of folks who are out there who are doing other things in life. They might be interested in fitness or health or business or music or acting or whatever, right? Like that, and it's important, and this is why the show has the catchphrase, meet people where they're at. Right. Like, and this is where the show is really taking a turn. And I would love to hear kind of, Todd, as you introduce yourself once more to the Brian Nichols Show audience. Again, it's been a while and there's a lot of new folks in the audience. I mean, we're reaching tens of thousands of folks every single week. So from when you were last in the show, I think we're getting like maybe hundreds and if we're lucky, thousands a month. So like a little bit different of an audience. So how about this? Let's set the stage here. Who is Todd Hagopian? You tell us a little bit more of your history, but also how that's fed into where you are, author of The Unfair Advantage, Weaponizing the hypomanic, not hypomaniac toolbox. Hit us with it, Todd.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you're right. Like when I was the libertarian in chief, that was the branding for a long time. You know, you are in that box and you're framing everything in a libertarian worldview. And since then, I've moved to the Stagnation Assassin, which is the business brand. And you're right. I still talk about politics. I still bring it up, but I bring it up in the business view, from a business standpoint. And people are much more receptive when you can tie it to what they're doing, what they're seeing. And so, yeah, I'm still a libertarian, not as much a big L, treasurer of the party libertarian that I used to be, but it's definitely different, but it's much more effective now when I do talk about it. And I really like what you guys are doing. That's great. And yeah, so I mean, my history, if the audience remembers, I've been treasurer of the party. I've run for chair in the past, so I'm big L libertarian, kind of transitioning to small L libertarian here now that I don't have those jobs anymore. And now I'm a business transformation author. So I've turned around 4 businesses over the years, and I've now put that into a system, which we can talk about, that stems from my bipolar disorder, which not a lot of people knew until this last year when I came out and let people know that. So I've turned around 4 businesses, everything from small founder businesses to small businesses that I've bought to large Fortune 500, business units that I've been in charge of. So So now that's what I do. I write about it. I talk about it. I share insights and share bipolar inspired strategies, because we all read the same 20 books, right? Every one of us reads the same 20 books. They're all right behind me. And we all know how people think we should manage. It's whitewashed, consultant driven, management techniques that we all learn. But if you want breakthrough results, you have to think differently than your competition and than your peers. And that's what this book is all about. And that's why we call it The Unfair Advantage.
I love it, Todd. And like I've kind of found this my unfair advantage, right? And I've talked about this a lot, like my personal battle with like the actual ADHD, not the Instagram Reels ADHD. It's like, oh my God, I self-diagnosed myself by watching 4 videos. No, not that, like actual like ADHD. And how I've actually kind of turned that into a superpower, right? Like I get hyper focused. Now, granted, it takes a while for me to get focused, but when I do, I'm a weapon. I can record, 5, 6, 7. I hate myself. I'm sorry. Shows. I was at a networking event like 2-3 weeks ago, and there was a guy he's in his late 30s, early 40s, and he has a bunch of kids, and literally every sentence was him doing a 6-7 joke. And I'm like, my brother in Christ, you are in your 40s. Your kids aren't here. Please stop. But I digress. But like I can get hyper focused. I'm also able to like just be very personable. Like I'm just very empathetic. I'm very, I want to know the why behind how like things work. Right. So like if somebody's upset, I want to know why. It's one thing to say, yes, that person's upset. Oh my goodness. How do we deal with their upsetness? Well, first, I think it's important to know why they're upset. And I've been told that like, that's weird that I think that. And I'm like, well, that just makes sense to me, but that might be my weapon, right? My secret weapon. So talk to us about bipolar disorder, Todd, because people hear that. And I think there is this characterization of it's, hey, how you doing? F you, I hate you. Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't nice of me. I think that's the way people look at what bipolar is. So talk to us a little bit more about your real lived experience and a little bit more about how that's applied into the business world as well.
100%. And by the way, if you ever want to do an episode on neurodivergence, there's a huge topic out there about ADHD and bipolar and valuing it in the workplace and diversity that we can talk through. Diversity that actually matters. You know what I mean? But anyway, so bipolar disorder is characterized by 2 stages, right? Bipolar. So you have the hypomanic stage where you're very excitable, you're grandiose goal setting, grandiose thoughts, you're
big highs.
Working 22 hours a day, not sleeping and that kind of thing. But really productive, really goal oriented, goal directed activity. And then you have the bipolar depression stage where you basically fall into this depression. And then all of a sudden you have all these promises you've made during your hypomanic phase. And you're like, how the am I going to do this? You know what I mean? And so, and that's the bipolar. And then that depression gets worse and worse depending on how the highs get. And different people spend different amount of times in the 2. But what I tell people, that talk about the FU kind of thing is I'm just a jerk. That has nothing to do with bipolar. So like that has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's much more about the hypomanic and then the depression. So when I got diagnosed, what was happening is I was flying through business when we used to talk, right? I was flying through business and getting promoted and this and that. But every time something good happened, it would be followed by something real bad. And that was the cycle. No one knew that. I didn't even know it. I was undiagnosed at the time. But when I got diagnosed, they gave me these pills and so they said, you're bipolar. I actually thought it was a good thing. It's like, okay, great. Now I have all this hypomania, it's great. But they gave me these pills and it basically cut out everything. I didn't get the highs. I didn't get the lows, but I completely lost my business edge. So what ended up happening is I was basically forced to say success or sanity. Like I can't be the guy I used to be. But I also can't be insane. Like it was not a good situation. I didn't want to go on the pills. I had to. It was not a good situation. You know what I mean? I was starting to get myself into trouble. And so I basically decided to hack my brain, weaponize my wiring, and really try and come up with ways to systematize how I was managing before. So can I mimic hypomania when I am healthy? And so I did a couple of those for the first turnaround, and it turned around the company. Then I got hired, and that's what I do. I get dropped into bad situations. I turn around companies. So they hired me for the second one, and I systematized a couple more things, and that helped turn around that company. And then in the third one, it was like 13 months in, and I'm like, oh, I didn't do that thing from the first one. You know what I mean? And then I implemented it and finished that turnaround. And then I was like, I got to get these all written down. I've been teaching people this, like my lieutenants, have been learning this stuff. They have no idea that I'm bipolar, but they've been learning these strategies. Got to get them down on paper. By the time I got to the fourth one and had everything down on paper, it just blew. I mean, the turnaround was so dramatic, so fast. And I was just kind of like working through the plan, boom, boom, boom. And I mean, it was pretty incredible. And I was like, okay, I gotta put this out there because of a few reasons. One, I can teach people this and that you don't have to be bipolar. It's actually better if you're not, because this is a system, that you can put in place. And I think it's important to talk about neurodivergence and let people know that I'm not successful despite my bipolar. I'm successful because of it. You know what I mean? And this neurodivergent aspects to the strategies allow me to think differently and do things differently than everybody else around me, which is why you can drop me into a bad situation and I can turn it around. Yeah. Where the person before me wasn't an idiot. You know what I mean? They knew how to run a business, but they didn't know how to turn around a business. And this is really geared towards transformation, which, by the way, people are like, how do you know when you have to transform a business? I'm like, if you haven't done it in 36 months, you need to transform your business. Like, that's the rule. Every 3 years, you need to go through a transformation. So this is very relevant to just about anybody in business.
You've spent your whole life building something meaningful, a career, a family, a legacy. But none of that matters if your health can't keep up. And the truth is, as we age, our body's natural production of nitric oxide, which is vital for circulation and heart function, declines sharply. And that drop increases your risk for high blood pressure, poor oxygen flow, and even cognitive decline. You don't feel like yourself, and no doctor seems to have an answer that doesn't involve more prescription medication. And that's why I recommend Cardio Miracle, because it's an all-in-one blend of nitric oxide boosters like L-arginine, L-citrulline, organic beets, and more that support your cardiovascular system, brain function, and your immune response. It's not about reversing time. It's about giving your body what it needs to keep showing up strong. You've worked too hard to feel like you're fading. So scan that little QR code over my shoulder, click the link in the show notes, or go to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS and get back in control of your health. And look for the little note saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols on the Cardio Miracle homepage. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Todd, man, it's interesting. You're outlining your bipolar, and as you're talking about how it's your superpower going to businesses and helping transform the businesses, I'm hearing same church, different pew, but how I kind of leverage my ADHD superpower when it comes to when I consult with businesses who are looking to revamp their go-to-market or sales strategies, right? And I think part of why I've been able to have that success, and I haven't systematized this or written this down like you have, which I probably should, but part of it starts with sitting down and not prescribing first, but really diagnosing. And I think the best way to diagnose is just to come in with an open mind. And I want to understand what they're doing currently and why they're doing that. Yep. So I can understand what they've accomplished, but also understand like where they're missing things. And then I just like to shadow. I will literally spend like a week or two of just hopping on calls, going through their Fathom recorder, going through their auto recorder, whatever it may be, and just watching calls, listening to calls, because I want to see what the motion is today. Because so one of the things about ADHD, for folks who are unfamiliar, is ADHD, it gives you a superpower of recognizing patterns, right? Almost like think of ChatGPT, right? Like where you can put stuff in and it starts to pick out patterns. I'm very attuned to the patterns in social cues and social behavior. So I can hear something or see something, or I'll notice a pause, or I'll notice, an inflection, and it will get my spidey senses tingling, right? Yeah. So I'm able to leverage that and help businesses. Or back when I was doing a lot of like actual one-on-one coaching with an SDR or sales team, like, hey, David, I listened to this call. This is what you did really, really well. Lean more into this. Or, hey, Julie, this is why you're not having success. You're leaving too much, wiggle room or here, or like you're doing this same value prop every single time and it's falling flat. Like those things I was able to really pick up on. So I'm actually fascinated by this because you're noticing it's a superpower in your world. I've noticed my own, neurodivergence is a superpower in my own world. I have a cohort in it's called a channel, the way we sell. And I have one of my cohorts. She also has ADHD, and it's just funny. We stumbled into each other's worlds back at a trade show, became really good friends, and then found out that we both were going through the same thing, and how we were basically approaching the industry in the exact same mentality. And it is very interesting to hear your story, because I'm going to almost guarantee, Todd, I'd love to hear your feedback. There are people out there who are suffering from bipolar. They're suffering from ADHD. They're suffering from name the neurodivergence that may exist, right? And they probably look at it as something that's holding them back.
For sure.
Versus, hey, this is maybe a little secret tool or weapon I can leverage to actually propel me forward. But to your point, so long as you have the systems in place to kind of help give you the guardrails, so you're not just going off into Neverland Ranch.
100%. And you know what? I love that this podcast is turning into this episode, because I love talking about this stuff. Usually I do it on the mental health episodes. You know what I mean? So if you ever want to talk more about the business, but let's dive into this, because this is fun. First of all, bookmark this episode, because if you want to write a book, I will help you do it, or co-write one with you. And 2 years from now, you're an author. And I love this topic. I mean, it gets a lot of press out there. This is important stuff. Now let's go to the neurodivergence at work. Here's the issue. Have you ever had anybody at work kind of come out as LGBTQ, and they make a big deal about it, and they come out for the first time, and everyone celebrates it, and they try, or not everybody, but you know what I mean? You get people that are celebrating their bravery and this and that. Well, that's not how it works when you come out as bipolar or ADHD, right? People try and fix you. That's the first thing they try and do, is they try and fix you. But by
the way, we try to fix ourselves first.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, I went 8 years undiagnosed, you know what I mean? Trying to fix myself, so that I stopped almost getting fired, every 3 months. So that's what the mentality is. And because managers don't understand it, so they want to fix you. Now, the difference is when you're LGBTQ, right, you don't necessarily have the superpower to be really good at business. But if you're ADHD or bipolar, you do have these hypomanic or hyperfocus. By the way, I got a whole chapter on pattern recognition. I love that you mentioned that, because it's extraordinarily important, and it's found in multiple different neurodivergencies. It's a really big hotspot that you can that you have, and other people can learn how to use. But anyway, I mean, what I want people to realize is that it's a positive, and you don't you don't try and minimize it. You try and maximize it. Teach other people how to mimic it, and that's what this is all about. And because and one tip for the audience, because there are tons of people out there fighting this. I get all kinds of emails that are like, oh, it's me too, just like you know what I mean? There's a ton of people that have some form of neurodivergency that they're dealing with. But here's the trick: when you do come out with it and you let people know, you have to couch it in the positives, like you just did. This is what I get out of it. I thought of that because of my ADHD. It doesn't have to become your identity, but you have to couch it in the positives, because what most people will do is be like, oh, sorry, it's my ADHD. I apologize. That's the only time they use it. They use it as a crutch. My bipolar,
it's an excuse.
I get mad at somebody. I could really easily be like, yeah, sorry, it's my bipolar.
Sorry, my bipolar. Yeah.
You know what? It's not your bipolar. You're just a jerk. You got mad at them. Live up to it, own it. But when you come up with an outside the box innovation, orthodoxy smashing innovation, you know what I mean? Then say, hey, the reason I came up with that is because I use this system that mimics hypomania, and I can teach it to you. You know what I mean? Two completely different ways of looking at, a disability. And because it's actually a superpower, like you're saying. And I think that's so important for the audience to understand is don't try and minimize it, try and maximize it when you find out something about somebody. It's just like if they have a skill, because you've got a skill in pattern recognition. I've got skills in hypomanic work ethic and orthodoxy smashing innovation and grandiose goal setting and, that kind of stuff. So.
Man, I would dare to say you couple some folks like you and me together, and my goodness, the hypomania we would have from the hypomanic toolbox. Todd, I know. So today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter than normal, and just, elephant in the room. This is candidly a conversation that I personally really enjoy having, and I want to continue. So we're going to make sure we have you back on very, very soon. You and I we'll touch base here after we finish up. But just for putting a pin in today's conversation and giving the audience a little bit of a sneak peek for our next conversation, just outline for us a quick case study or an example of where you've been able to leverage your hypomanic toolbox and leverage your bipolar superpower to help transform a company, or help with some personal issue, whatever it may be, but just help drive this home. Like, this is the issue that I had to deal with, but here's how it actually helped transform something tangibly in real life.
Yeah. So this is what I'll do. The book itself, that you'll throw a link into, the book itself actually goes through a transformation that I did in a business fiction setting so that they can watch the entire thing unfold. But I'll give you a short one for this podcast, different, so it's not repeating the book. So at ITW, I was in a business. We did a VAVE process where you're diving deep, trying to take cost out of something, right? And we were doing a grocery store scale. Okay, so you're weighing meat at the grocery store, and we ran into the load cell, which is how precise something gets weighed. And they were like, "Well, we could probably take $15 out of this." And I'm like, "Well, why did we use this one to begin with?" And they said, "Well, it measures out an extra decimal point on the weighing, but nobody really cares about it." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" And so we started digging into it. And it means that if you put a bunch of turkey on the scale, instead of 10.1 pounds, it could be 10.15 pounds. And what that means is 3 extra cents for the retailer. And I was like, "Are you serious? Does anybody else have this?" And they're like, "No, we're the only ones that tried the intense load cell. That's why we can take it out." And I was like, no. So we went to the market and we couched it as, if you replace this scale, you're going to save $82,000. You know what I mean? Wow. Like, you can buy this $3,000 scale times this many customers a day, times this, times 3 cents, and you'll make $80,000. And so we went from going break fix, just selling a $3,000 scale every time one broke. We had a huge install base out there, to going after them and saying, "Listen, don't be an idiot. Buy 2,000 scales right this second. Replace everyone in your whole fleet. You give me $2 million and you get $4 million a year." You know what I mean? Like, this is how it's going to work.
This is math.
It's math. It's a math problem. That's what I used to say. It's just a math problem. It's like a bad 80s movie. We turned it into an ATM machine. You know what I mean? That you get a penny every time. And that business went from $42 million a year to $67 million a year in less than 3 years. We went from about $5 million in EBITDA to $15 million in EBITDA in less than 3 years. And it was just about orthodoxy smashing innovation. We didn't even have to change the product. We just had to think about the product differently and make sure that we were putting ourselves in the customer's eyes, like you do all the time. You know what I mean? And how can we do this? And I got a bunch of other stories, but that's like one of the coolest, fastest ones where we didn't even have to do anything. We just had to think differently. It's not that we were trying to be the best weighing precision scale. We were trying to turn the scale into a revenue generator, and that made all the difference. So.
Preach. I've said this a million times in the show, and I've said this directly to customers, is the most dangerous expression I hear in business from any business leadership team is, "But Brian, we've always done things this way."
7
right?
Yep.
And it really, it just comes down to doing things differently, seeing things in a different way. Todd, this is truly like the stuff I live for these chats. So I already got my calendar pulled up. You and I are going to sync up here afterwards. We're going to get you back in the show ASAP, because I think part 2 of this conversation, we're going to really dive headfirst into the applications to the business world, and we can even take this beyond the business world in the future. I think we can look at the world of personal relationships. We can look at the world of politics, right? And trying to build your target market and trying to effectively communicate your message to them. Like, there's a lot we can dig into. So folks, this is part 1 of a Todd Hagopian series here, the Brian Nichols Show. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button, of course. Hit that little notification bell, whether you're watching us over on your favorite podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or your favorite video platform like Rumble, YouTube. We do have the show upload on Spotify as well. And also, we do live stream every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern over on X, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Yeah, I got them all. And of course, I'll go to air on your podcast platforms as well. As for yours truly, you can find me over at B Nichols Liberty on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Todd, where can folks go ahead, reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation and learn more about this unfair advantage in life, candidly?
Yeah, man, I don't sell anything except the book. So I've got a website I just put up that has tons and tons of free business transformation stuff, toddhagopian.com, real simple. And then the book's on Amazon, Unfair Advantage by Todd Hagopian. A lot of stuff out there, guys. And I got a new website coming out that I'll pitch on a different podcast, but it's going to have 3 times as much business transformation content. It'll be kind of the corporate version of my website, but it's going to be great. You guys can learn everything. And then more importantly, just hit the contact me button and message me or go to Twitter and find me. I love talking about this stuff. And again, I don't get paid for it. So I just like talking about it. Ask me a question. I'll give you an answer.
Todd Hagopian, it's a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, member of the audience, for joining us today. Again, part 1, so make sure you put a pin in today's conversation. As for that being said, one final plug, and that is to please support the folks who support us, like our phenomenal studio sponsor here, Cardio Miracle. Or, hey, Cardio Miracle, not for you? No worries. Head over to briannicholsshow.com/sponsor. We have some incredible sponsors like Liquid Freedom Energy Tea, Blood of Tyrants Wine, Ebel's CBD, and more. Again, one more time, briannicholsshow.com/sponsors. As for today's show, I think we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. But again, this is just part 1, so make sure you've hit subscribe. But with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Todd Hagopian. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.